Alright, so I've decided to dumb down the explanations quite a bit, or at least for right now, because technology tree is really, in just science general, it's too hard of a topic. So I'm gonna explain just literally this screen. I assume it'll take me like 15 to 20 minutes though, because all of these have quite a few different. So this is like the first thing we have to talk about: civilizations. Alright? Now, they each, alright, so these aren't important, but they each come with three different things. They come with a unique ability, and they either come with a unique unit, a unique tile improvement, which, like this, or they come with a unique building, and I think that's it. It can be one of those three. But some of them come with two unique units. I think every civ comes at least with one unique unit, but either for the second slot, either has a second unique unit, a unique building, or a unique tile improvement. And then that's unique units. I'll probably just start with those. They are just replacements for ordinary units that have some sort of special ability. Either that or they're just stronger, and that's pretty much it. I don't think they've added new units, but I think a couple of civs, they moved, it's the same thing, but it's moved earlier. I know for like the Vikings, I think, or Norway. No, not Norway, it's Denmark in this game. I think Denmark, one of their unique units is a unit moved earlier. I'm actually going to check that right now. Who's the leader for Denmark in this game? Because I know it's Harold something. Yeah, that is not what I want to see. And I have no way to access these. But I'm pretty sure the Berserker is just a long swordsman moved earlier. Or it might be a musketman. It's one of the two. And yeah, that's just something. Now for unique tile improvements, like they don't usually replace tile improvements. They're usually just another option. You have like a Casbah just gives, I'm pretty sure it gives like bonuses. I know it gives bonuses to desert tiles, but I don't know the specific bonuses. I know it gives like culture and gold, but I'm not sure whether it gives like production food or anything else. That'd be a bit overpowered. I don't think it gives production food, but I think it gives gold, culture, and I don't know, maybe a production. But unique units, we're going to talk about that. Unique buildings, these generally replace buildings. Like the Royal Library replaces a library, and the Mud Pyramid Mosque replaces a temple. I don't even think there's any unique buildings that are not replacing other buildings, to be honest. I can't think of any at the moment. But now that we've covered unique units, improvements, and buildings, we can go back to the abilities. Now, generally, the abilities have nothing really to do with victory condition, but there are some, like Alexander's obviously for diplomacy victory. Assyria is kind of like a combination of domination and science, because it's mainly early game. I wouldn't say it's domination focused, I'd say it's mainly just early game warring. Askia, they're kind of not really focused on one. They're more so like, that's more so for like economic purposes with the gold. And the promotions are pretty nice, but I mean, it's not really going to help in a military victory. Or it could help a little, just it's not significant enough for me to say it's geared towards a military victory. And then like this one doesn't even have to do with any victory. This is just solely for economy. That was disgusting. I don't even know where I record. I'm still sick, so anyway. But if we scroll down the list, I can actually basically pinpoint where are the best ones for certain victory types. For diplomacy, obviously the best one's Alexander. Actually, that's a lie, Venice. But Venice is special, so out of the non-DLC civs, Alexander would definitely. Well, they're actually the only civ that has anything dealing with diplomacy in the non-DLC. But yeah, Venice. I should probably just talk about them a bit. Venice, their special abilities, they get one city, or they can't build settlers. They can get more cities by puppeting city-states using their Great Merchants of Venice, which is actually a unique great person. I should have talked about that. I'm pretty sure there are only 2 unique great people in the game. There is the Merchant of Venice, that's one, which allows you to puppet city-states. And then there's the Khan, which is a unique great general for Mongolia. Basically what it does is it heals adjacent units and it has more movement points. It gives them more experience if they're adjacent and they're in battle, I think. And I think that's it. I don't think it changes the combat strength, but they're insanely powerful. Honor would be a highly recommended second social policy adoption for them. I normally don't recommend that, but simply because they're the Mongols. But yeah, Attila's pretty good for domination. Well, this is more like early game domination with their rams and horse archers. Mainly just early game warmongering. Or not even warmongering, just warring. Augustus Caesar is pretty good for infrastructure. And again, early game warring with the 2 units. We already talked a bit about like top 4. So I'm just going to go. Bismarck, good for early game economy with the barbarians, and early game warring a bit with the less land unit maintenance and the conversion chance. Pretty good late game stuff as well. Boudica, one of the worst civs in the game. Good for early game faith though, and a bit early game defense with the warriors. I actually have no clue. I think this replaces an opera house, but Casimir, one of the better civs in the game. You can just basically do whatever you want with him. Because not only does he get an amazing unique ability, he also gets an amazing unit. And what's special about this unit is normally Lancers are garbage, but it turns them into like an amazing unit, which this is actually one of the best unique units in the game because of that. Because most are unique units, they replace a unit that actually has some use, but Lancers generally aren't. And then Ducal Civils are really good. Catherine, infrastructure again, and then somewhat domination due to the strategic resource overload you'll get. And then they have their 2 mid-game unique things. Darius. I'd say domination, because this bonus is actually pretty significant even late game. Plus 1 movement is, I'd say, more significant than the 10% combat strength. Because, like, if, let's say you have a 2, this is more significant for, like, lower movement units. So, like, if you have a unit that has 2 moves, that moves 3, that is 150% of what it originally was. So, it has the early game 2 unique things. Yeah. Early game warring, generally, the immortals are good, but you don't usually get their unique ability until later in the game. Dido, another garbage civ. I actually did one of my better games. Units may cross mountains is completely irrelevant. And then the 50 damage per turn just nerfs it. Well, I suppose it would be OP if you could just sit a ton of units on mountains and get like protection from every other unit. The harbors are nice, but I mean it's not like a free harbor. So, well, if you don't have a harbor, that's just a bit less gold. Let's see, they get the African Forest Elephant, the 2 early game unique units aren't really that good. All this is going to take forever. I see how slowly I'm going through. Elizabeth. Definitely, I wouldn't say domination, but like, utilize their mid-game military. Longbowman, extremely powerful. It's essentially just a crossbowman with +1 range. But then again, at the time, no one's going to have +1 range, so, or the time period. And then ships of the line are just insanely powerful frigates, and frigates last forever. +2 movement for all naval units is definitely a thing you should utilize with the ships of the line. 1 extra spy is not really important. But I do think it comes as soon as you get the first spy, so you have 2 spies, and I suppose that's helpful. Here we talked about Venice. Gajah Mada, another garbage civ, unless you're playing on Archipelago. Uh, this is probably the most specific unique ability, I would say. The first, or the most situational, that's a much better word. First 3 cities founded on continents other than where Indonesia started. Each provide 2 unique luxuries and can never be erased. So that's essentially your capital counts as 1, and if you get 2 more on other islands, then each city provides 2 unique luxury resources. So that's 6. Actually, no, you might need 4 cities, not because it says other than where Indonesia starts. So your city and then 3 more, and then each give 2. So that's 8 unique luxury resources. And actually, that's false. Each city gives 1 unique luxury, but it comes in 2 quantity. So that's 4 luxury resources that you have 2 copies of. So you could trade the extras away, but that's 16 happiness. And if you settle a city on a new island, I'm pretty sure that city starts with the 2 of the unique luxury resources. So, I mean, it's not like you need to get your 4th city up and then the ability works. It just is as soon as you start. Their units are pretty garbage. The Kree Swordsman is pretty cool. It gets like a random promotion. I haven't used it at all, but it's like some sort of special ability. Candy, I have no clue what that is, but India population growth. This is, if you're in a multiplayer game, you generally want to go Liberty, or at least if you're on online. If you're like just screwing around with your friends, then it doesn't really matter. But this is one where you would definitely go tradition. Do not go anything art tradition if you're doing Gandhi, because he gets double unhappiness from cities. So you shouldn't be more than 3 or 4 cities even. Anything more, you would just get too much unhappiness. But you get half unhappiness from population, which that's extremely powerful. Especially if you're using caravans to send food, then it's minimal unhappiness. You'd still get some, but it's not as much as like anyone else would get. And then they have their 2 unique things, which are irrelevant. I already talked about Genghis Khan. Gustavus Adolphus for Sweden. He's also a pretty bad civ, but he has kind of a somewhat decent ability if you utilize it properly. You gain 90 influence with a great person gift to a city-state. That's not the important part. When declaring friendship, Sweden and their friend gain 10% boost to great person generation. So if you're friends with them, you get 10%, but for every person they're friends with, they get 10%. So if there's 4 civs in a game and they're friend with 3 others, they get 30%. But the larger the map, the more friendship you can get, so they'll just get tons of great person generation. And they have their 2 unique units, which are kind of unimportant. And then Haile Selassie, another one you should probably definitely go tradition for. 20% combat bonus when fighting units from a civilization with more cities. So with Haile Selassie, you shouldn't be more than like 3 or 4 cities really, because you want to. This is combined with the unique unit, which is actually something that's worth talking about. It gets a bonus when you're fighting in your own territory. So when combined with this, they're just the ultimate turtle civ. The stele is pretty good as well. It's just essentially a monument that gives 2 faith as well, which is pretty good, and 2 culture. That's what I want. I don't even think that changed. I think the monuments won. But for Denmark, I think I already talked a bit about them. Yeah, I did in their unique unit. Harun al-Rashid, I've played as them one of the games, and I've utilized their ability. I've said that caravans gain 50% extended range, and trader would spread the home city twice as effectively, or the home city's religion. So that means that you should just don't go piety. I would never suggest it unless it's a screw around game. But if you do have a religion, this is kind of beneficial. Same with these 2 work hand in hand. The bazaar is pretty good. I should talk about it. It doubles whatever luxury resource you have. And even if you have, let's say you have 2 of the same, then it gives you 4. So it's not only limited to unique luxuries. It's limited. And then camel archers are also amazing. What's amazing about them is it's essentially a knight that's ranged, but what it can do is it can fire and then move, and that's pretty powerful. I'm not sure its ranged attacks are the strongest, but that in itself is really powerful. Hiawatha is, I think, actually in the tier list of civs, it's actually the bottom one, because its unique ability is pretty trash. Units move through forest and jungle and friendly territories if there were roads. These tiles can be used to establish city connections upon researching the wheel. And then caravans move along forest and jungle as if there were roads. This really is... It's not really situational, because I think they have a spawning bonus, or a... I think it's... you can disable it in settings, but it's a starting preference. And I think he prefers, if you pick him, then you have a higher chance to start, near rough terrain, and that could be used, but it's not helpful in any way other than you could just literally build roads once you get the wheel, because they can only establish city connections upon the wheel, which you can establish city connections normally. And then there are two unique things that are pretty trash. I actually think the Longhouse, I don't remember exactly what it does, but I think it's actually a downgrade from the from the workshop. So yeah. Oh, Isabella. Probably this is actually the most situational civ. You get a gold bonus for discovering a natural wonder. Bonus enhance it first to discover it. I'm pretty sure one of the wonders you get gold bonus anyway, but I assume they just get more than that. And then culture, happiness, and tile yields from natural wonders doubled. So you're not benefiting unless you find a wonder and settle it some sort of way. The Conquist, both of these are pretty good units though. I would say the Tercio is just a stronger musketman, and then Conquistador, it's a unit that if you're on another continent, it can settle cities, so that's kind of pretty. It's also situational, so it only works if you're playing on like continents or archipelago. Polynesia is actually one of my favorite civs. You can embark and move over ocean tiles immediately, so astronomy it's a pretty far away, so you can utilize this pretty effectively. Mainly if you're on like a continent's map. Archipelago, there's ocean tiles are generally irrelevant, so. +1 sight when embarked, that's useful, because you get no sight from units. It's literally one range. And then the 2 range is so much more useful. That's 200% of what you could see. And then this 10% combat strength bonus within 2 mouse tiles of a Moai. That's one of their unique tile improvements. That's pretty good, but the Moai is mainly for culture. You don't usually use it for defense, but it could be used. The Maori Warrior is pretty cool. It decreases the combat strength of opposing units. Maria, this is complete economic power. Resource diversity grants twice as much gold for Portugal and trade routes. Now, another thing I don't know about the game is how the resource diversity works in terms of trade routes. I know distance is one of the things which affects the goal of trade routes, and I know the population of the city, but I'm not sure how much gold or how much resource diversity comes into play in terms of the equations. The now is just a replacement caravel, it's not important, but their unique tile improvement, the Fetora, is built in safe states, and it gives you a copy of their luxury, so that's pretty cool. Maria Theresa, this is similar to Venice. You can spend gold to annex or puppet a safe state. It has been your ally for 5 turns. That's pretty cool ability. Maria Theresa is actually one of the better civs because their coffee house gives 25% great people generation. That's really powerful. Probably one of the best unique buildings in the game. The Hussar is just, I actually have no clue what that is, but it's not related to the Winged Hussar. Montezuma, you gain culture from killing units, so if you can just stay at war as long as possible, you don't even have to take cities, just kill your enemy units, focus on those. You can actually become like very cultured, even if you don't have a high culture per turn. And then the floating gardens is really good. It gives +2 food to lakes, and I think it gives... This is a replacement of the watermill. but it gives +2 food to the lakes, and I'm not sure. It gives +1 food to something else, but that might just be for the city. Jaguars are pretty cool. They get a free woodsman. France, like I said, I have no clue what theming bonuses are. But if you do know them, that's useful for tourism. Musketeers, pretty useless, but the chateaus are pretty good. You can build them adjacent to luxuries, and they'll give you gold and culture. It's really good. Nebuchadnezzar, the first science civ. Get free great scientist when you discover writing. That's pretty powerful. You could just 2-tech it and then already have a great scientist. And then you get the rest 50% faster. Walls of Babylon are really powerful early game defense, and then bowmen are just stronger archers. Nothing there. Oda Nobunaga of Japan. They actually buffed this from the non-DLC, but units fight as though they're at full strength with damage. That's the original one. That's actually pretty powerful. You can just suicide units and they would be dealing full damage, even if they're on like 10 health. And then you get culture from fishing boats and atolls, which that's not really useful. It's mainly used for the first part. Samurai are actually kind of one of the most useless UAs because they're long swordsmen, which is I think 1 or 2 techs away from musketmen. So yeah, that's the zeros are much more useful because they're fighters that don't require oils, so you can kind of just rush them. Very powerful. The Maya are one of the best civs. Once you research theology, you get a great person count, and every 394 years, so it gets longer the later in the game. And then you can choose a great person each time. Atlatlists are pretty much useless. Pyramids are kind of cool. They're shrines that provide science, but they're mainly used for their unique ability. Pachacuti the Inca, that was my previous civ. The units ignore terrain costs and move it into any tile with hills. That's really powerful if it's also has like forest or jungle. But no maintenance costs for improvements in hills, half cost everywhere else. That's really good for economy. But they're mainly used for their terrace farms, which is essentially it's a farm for hill tiles, but it gets bonus food for adjacent hills and mountains. So if you have like a hill that you can get terrace farm with 3 adjacent mountains, I think that's 4 food plus the production of a hill. Slingers are useless, but Brazil, this is like the best tourism civ. You get 100% output during golden ages, and then you earn artists, musicians, and writers 50% faster. That's really good when combined with their. If you're at war during the modern era, use the Prasinha because it's just it has no buffs, but it's an infantry that gives for each kill gives you bonus golden age points. That's pretty powerful. And then the Brazil Wood Camp is a unique town improvement for jungle, and it gives culture and gold. That's really good. It's better than the trading post, especially if you're going for tourism. Pocatello, one of the better civs again, but this is mainly for early game. Founded cities start with bonus territory, and units receive combat bonus when fighting within their territory. The Pathfinders are. This ability is mainly used for early game. I mean, the combat bonus is nice, but the founded cities with the additional territory, that's mainly the main use for them. The Pathfinders, they're a scout that has the same strength as a warrior, but people usually don't use them for that. The reason why they're used is because when you discover an ancient rune, you get to pick what you receive, which is pretty powerful. Comanche riders are decent, I guess, but Ramses 20% production towards wonders. That's purely for wonder building. But don't just spam wonders. Just if you have spare production, then you'd use it. I mean, you could spam wonders, but then it just makes you a target. Burial tombs are actually pretty cool. There are temples that essentially you build them in a city, and it gives the enemy 3 times the amount of gold if they pillage or if they capture that city with the burial tomb. But other than it, it's just no unit maintenance or no maintenance costs. I think there's another ability, but I'm not aware. War chariots are really powerful. They're essentially just chariot archers that don't require horses, which is really good for early game war. Rom-com Hang is kind of the other diplomacy one. You get food, culture, and faith from friendly city states increased by 50%. So this isn't every city state, just religious. Food is maritime and culture is cultural, I just think. Notice Swans, elephants, useless. Watts they're actually pretty cool. I think they're a replacement for universities, but I'm not exactly sure what they offer. Sejong of Korea, one of the better civs again. It's arguably more powerful than Babylon in terms of science. You get a +2 science for all specialists, and for great percentile improvements, receive a tech boost each time a scientific bill and wonder spell in the Korean capital. So the 2 science from specialists and tile improvements, I would say, is more powerful than the tech boost, but they're both really powerful abilities. And then they get 2 insane defensive units. Turtle Ship, which is like, I think it's a caravel that can't enter deep ocean, but it does get a whopping 36 combat strength instead of 20, and that I do know. And then the Huachas, it's a trebuchet that doesn't get a bonus against cities, but it gets a high bonus against units, or it might just have high combat strength or range strength, but it's actually better than cannons in terms of unit damage, so that's kind of something to mention. Shaka of the Zulu, I used them once, but melee units 50% less, all units require 25% less experience. This is solely military save. Only go domination when you're Shaka. The Impies are really powerful, one of the best unique units, because it's a pikeman, but what it can do is it can ranged attack and then melee attack, so you get 2 attacks from 1 turn, which is really powerful. And one of them doesn't even deal damage to you. The Ikanda, it just gives special promotions to units, to melee units only. I actually have no clue what they do, but they're mainly for like impies and such, or like spearmen, or any armed melee unit, I guess. I'm not sure if they apply in the modern era, or is like, they might only be for like a certain era and before. I'm not sure whether it applies to all. Suleiman, they're a pretty good naval power. They have all melee ships have prize ships, which is essentially what privateers have, where if you defeat an enemy ship with it, then you might convert it to your side, which is pretty good. And then you pay only 1/3 cost for naval unit maintenance, which 2/3, that's still good, but 1/3's like pretty insane. Unfortunately, they're unique units. Neither of them are naval, so that's pretty unfortunate, and both of them are pretty useless. Theodora are another one of the most useless civs in the game. Just one more belief when you find a religion, which is, if there's a religious victory, that might be worth it, but I would actually say they're the worst civ in the entire game. Cataphracts, I don't even know what they do. They're not important. Dromans are just a ranged trireme, which that's pretty powerful early game if you're coastal civ. Washington of America, again, one of the worst civs in the game. They're not the worst, like as bad as Theodora, but their ability is just not worth it. All our military units have +1 sight. That's kind of useful. 50% discount on purchasing tiles is also kind of useful, but it's not really something to brag about. The B-17 is just a more powerful bomber, and Minuteman is just a more powerful musketman. The Netherlands, again, one of the worst civs. Their unique ability is completely useless. Retain 50% of the happiness benefits from a luxury resource if your last copy is traded away. You don't want to trade away your last copy, so you should never utilize that. Or I don't think there would ever be a reason to. Seabaggers are pretty good, though. They're just upgraded privateers. And then the Polder is pretty good. You build it on a marsh, and I think it gives extra food than what a normal farm would. Wuzu Tian of China, they're actually pretty good, like early to mid-game military, because their great general combat bonus is increased by 15, and their spawn rate is increased by 50. Both of these are really good, because great generals are hard to come by unless you're just warring 24/7. Usually you get like 1 or 2 from war, and then you make peace. Unless you're just constant warring, then you just have a flow of great generals. The Chukonus are also really powerful. They're like the contrast to the longbows. Instead of having +1 range, they have what's the ability? Logistics, where they attack twice. The Papermaker is just a library that gives you a gold. I think it's just 4 gold, but that's pretty much it. That's not really as important. But I'm actually going to end it there since it's been 30 minutes, and I've only spent the entire time talking about all the civs in the game. And what the abilities do and what their unique bonuses are. So next video I'll probably talk about map types and then just sizes, like just the rest of this. It might take like 10 to 15 minutes since they're not as extensive as leader choosing, but yeah, that's it. So it'll be earlier tomorrow. So yep, tomorrow it is then.